I went to H-Mart with the goal of buying every single kind of live seafood they had at the store, and here is what I got and the recipes I made. Now, if you've never been to H-Mart before, honestly, it's one of my favorite grocery stores, and not just because of all the live seafood they have, but because there's so many things there that you can find that you can't find anywhere else. Like, first of all, miso paste. I know a lot of people have it in their local grocery stores, but I don't. And then all this kimchi. I don't know if you're a kimchi fan like me, but I love trying all the different kimchi, and I grabbed some green onion kimchi today. I also grabbed some frozen oysters because I heard they're pretty good, and I saw these live blue crabs, but they looked dead, and they were $7.99 a pound for live blue crabs that looked definitely dead, so I skipped on those. Now, as far as true live seafood, I saw Dungeness crab, abalone, and of course some lobster too, and so that's what I got. I got 4 abalone, I got 2 Dungeness crabs, and I got 1 lobster and another really spunky lobster that got out of this guy's hands. And I also grabbed a tray of sea urchin because I've never had that before either. Now, I did skip over 1 live seafood. I skipped over the oyster just because I had a ton of oysters at home and I didn't need to buy any more. Now, first thing that I made when I got home were these Dungeness crabs, and if you saw in that little previous clip there, I made like a Dungeness crab rice, fried rice kind of thing. I only used the legs for this, and yeah, before you spam me in the comments with, did you eat the body too? Of course I ate the body, but for this recipe, I just used the leg meat. So I went ahead, I cleaned out the top of the shell, and you want to leave some of the juice in there, and also the soft spots where they're like the new shell forming. A lot of this stuff that's inside is called crab butter, and when you mix it with rice, a little bit of kimchi, and of course some chinsu too, I think it's probably one of my favorite things to eat when I'm eating crabs now. Put some crab meat back on top of there, a little bit of ponzu sauce, and this smelled and tasted absolutely delicious. I'm telling you, next time you get any type of crab, you have to do it this way. Another way to do it too is instead of kimchi, if you don't like that, use some jiaosum, and that stuff is absolutely delicious. Next up, what I tried is actually the uni, or sea urchin. Now, I was a little suspect of this uni because it wasn't as brightly colored as the ones that I've seen on other people's channels and stuff like that, but I did it anyways, and I went down to my pier and grabbed an oyster. My plan was to go ahead and open up this oyster, put a little bit of the uni on there, and a little bit of ponzu sauce because I thought that would be a good pair altogether. Now, the oyster I'm using is technically just a Chesapeake Bay oyster. It's a wild-caught oyster that I couldn't finish the bushel, so I put them down at my pier to keep them there temporarily until I'm ready to eat them. This was a nice, plump oyster, and the really good thing about this oyster was it wasn't going to be too salty. So with the ponzu sauce, sometimes things can get too salty. So lower brine oyster normally is a perfect pair when you're using one of these kind of saltier sauces. I put a little bit of uni on there, a little bit of ponzu sauce, and I had some wasabi on there too. And I went ahead and gave this a taste, and I'm not sure if this is how uni's supposed to taste, but I didn't like it. It was a little bit fishy. I didn't really taste any saltiness from the uni. It wasn't buttery like everyone had said. I'd definitely pass the next time. Next up was abalone, and honestly, this was the most intimidating one out of all the seafood that I bought. I've never had abalone before. I don't know anyone that's cooked abalone, and honestly, I had no clue how to clean it. I watched a bunch of different videos, and I settled on one that showed someone using an oyster knife to kind of cut the abalone away from it. The only thing is, I don't think I did it exactly the way I was supposed to, because when I did end up cutting it away and severing kind of the foot or whatever it is right there at the bottom, there was supposed to be stuff that came with it, and it stayed in the shell. I don't know if that's stuff you're supposed to eat or not. Next, instead of cut off the beak, I think that's what I did there. And then I just went ahead and cut these in small, thinner slices. In hindsight, I probably should have cut it a lot thinner, because my plan right now is to go ahead and try this raw. Now, I tried it with some ponzu sauce, and it was super tough. After doing some research, it looked like I was supposed to tenderize it first before I ate it raw, so next time I'm definitely going to tenderize it. Instead of wasting the other abalone eating it raw, I decided to go ahead and cook it, and I thought maybe some of it cooked in Old Bay butter would be the right answer. So I went ahead and scrubbed it, cut it really thin again, and this time I tried to cut it a little bit thinner than before, just because I knew it was going to be a little more tender if I cut it thinner is what I thought. And still, I didn't really tenderize this one. I'm hoping that the cooking tenderizes it enough that it's not so tough. So my game plan is basically just to slice these thin enough, get them into a pan with some of that Old Bay butter, and then I'm hoping that if I saute it for, probably about 3 or 4 minutes, it's going to be tender. And as I sauteed it and started stabbing it with the fork, I could tell this was pretty tender. I moved it around a good amount so it didn't burn. The smells coming off this dish were absolutely amazing. I went ahead and got some on a fork. I gave it a taste, and look, I like this way better than the raw abalone. It was super tender cooked, and I love the Old Bay butter addition to it. I'm going to call this Chesapeake Bay abalone. And the last dish that I made with that live seafood is going to be this lobster salad. Like I said, I got 2 lobsters on there. I don't boil my lobster. I steam my lobster. I steamed it for about 13 or 14 minutes, and then I went ahead and picked the meat from one lobster, chopped it up, and then got some celery out too. Now you could put celery or onion or whatever you want in this lobster salad. That's 100% up to you. Combine the lobster and the celery, roll out a lemon, and I used about a half a lemon squeezed into that, and then just use mayonnaise sparingly. The last thing you want is the lobster to be overpowered by the mayonnaise. Now at this point you can add salt, pepper, whatever kind of spices you want. Off camera I went ahead and added some salt and pepper. I put it on some toasted bread, and I gotta say this bite was absolutely delicious. By far my favorite thing that I cooked from the live seafood at H-Mart.